And now it's fine.
Good morning. I'd like to call the public session of the Board of Curators back to order. I think due to the events that transpired yesterday in the state of Oregon college campus, I'd ask for a moment of silence to remember the families and those affected there. Thank you. Vice President Graham, if you would, if you could tee up the program.
Okay, good morning. Today is another one of our sessions related to Curator Cup's Year of the Student, and today's focus is on the topic of mental health on campus. We have a panel consisting of the directors of the counseling centers of the 4 campuses, and prior to that we'll have Deborah Robinson, who is herself a psychologist, and also the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs at S&T, do a short presentation, kind of cover some key points, and then we'll get into brief discussions and interactions with you, questions that you might have. So, Deborah?
Good morning, and thank you, Curator Cups, for having this as the Year of the Student. We all care about students, and there's been a whole series of programs and sessions looking at things to help students be successful. Advising, looking at how the instruction is handled, our time to graduation. Those are all very important systems, and our student safety, as was indicated yesterday, makes the whole safety issue even more relevant and important, and mental health. You know, I think many of these things that you've looked at, we've tried to figure out how to put structures in place to be most effective on our campuses to take care of our students. And with mental health, we have many practices in place. But one thing that, often intrigues me, because we go after the best students. We look at their academic credentials. What was their high school graduation? What were they in the class? Where were they at in terms of their ACT scores? But they come to campus. We have high hopes for them to be successful, but the whole student comes to campus. And that's where some of the whole mental health issues come into play, because it's almost like a foundation. You think of Maslow's hierarchy. You got to think of basic needs before you can be even more successful at the top. So as we look at that, let's just look at that in general. So over the past 30 years, so yes, I'm a psychologist by training, and I came over 30 years ago as a psychologist to the S&T campus. And I was a director of counseling just like this group for about a decade, some time back. And, I look at the changes that have occurred. There's still some things that are still in place, but you look at kind of on the left side. So 30 years ago, parents dropped their students off to college. Many of us were dropped off to college around that time. And, we expected kids to be taken care of. There was a real focus on individual needs. There was kind of almost the career guidance model. Counselors were in their office, and sometimes people didn't want to go see a counselor because of the stigma and the stereotype about counselors. And, short time media. We called home once a week or something to talk to our parents. Not now. It's we're all independent consumers. And the focus still is on the individual, but we have to have a real look at what makes a safe campus for everybody, not just the individual student, but the whole student population. It's a mental health treatment model. We have different students. There's an outreach mentality. Not only are they in their offices, but there's windows there, and it's a safe place, but they're out on campus. They're doing presentations. There's Suicide Prevention Day, Mental Health Day, alcohol screenings. So they're out there and they're known. And we talk about real-time media sources. Well, we saw it yesterday. I had these older ones here looking at what started back in Columbine, then Virginia Tech, which really shocked us all that it could happen on a college campus. And then not that much later, it happens at Northern Illinois University. It permeates to other places. We see it happening in Tucson, Arizona, with the senator being shot. And it happened yesterday on another college campus in Oregon. So this is in all of our minds. So we want to have a safe campus. We want to do everything we can. And I think it's really stepped up all of our game in terms of what we do to help prevent these things, plus help students be successful. So if we look at how our students have changed, much more diversity on campus. Parents are highly engaged with their sons and daughters. There are students who text their parents several times a day. There are parents who call because they want to have things taken care of for their sons and daughters. And we also have a generation where many of the parents were the ones who were, they talk about the helicopter parents or whatever. They did everything for their sons and daughters to help make them successful. Every event took them to things. But what has happened is many times the students just don't have the same resiliency because everything's been done for them before, and they really don't know what to do unless they turn to mom or dad. And the use of social media, Facebook, Twitter, there's things going on all the time. So a student is always posting things on their Facebook page for their friends about the latest relationship, the latest breakup, how they feel at the moment, what's going on. And we see these things and we have to figure out what to respond to and what not to, how much is just their way of communicating. And again, the consumer perspective. People are looking for schools that are going to take care of students and meeting their needs because they're used to having them met. So if we look today, I think it has become increasingly over the past few decades, the mental health issues facing students have become more complicated. A large percentage of them now enter with prior mental health issues. They've seen psychiatrists, they've been taking medications. There's some that come with previous suicide attempts. Learning disabilities are very common, and we've had the No Child Left Behind, we've had all these IEPs, so anybody who's had any kind of learning disability, they've had special services along the way to help them accommodate to be successful. Alcohol and drug use is there. Means students are drinking at a younger age. They don't just wait till they come to college. It's not uncommon to have high school and younger students drinking alcohol, and you hear about all the drugs. And the difficult family backgrounds. Many students come to campus in which they're from a family that has had alcohol issues or health issues, mental health issues, troubled split backgrounds. So they're bringing this with them, the baggage to campus, the whole student that comes. So what are we doing now? And this is what this group will be able to tell you more about. So you see topping the list is education and awareness. We're at university. We teach students what mental health issues are out there, what's going on, and in terms of helping them be aware for themselves and do self-care, preventative things to help them help their friends. Early intervention, prevention, everything we can do to step on things earlier. And the stigma reduction, that it's okay to see a counselor or therapist. In many ways, you look at the executives, there's executive coaches, so why wouldn't students see counselors? This is one of the few times in their lives when they can get free counseling services and get free use of health services and get to go to the fitness facilities. Consultation, lots of times, lots of calls about, well, what do I do about my friend? That's available. Professors call, staff call, and of course, treatment. And so all those things at the top are much bigger now, although treatment's still huge because those issues still exist. They don't replace it, these are on top of it. So what are some of those education preventive issues? As I mentioned, national screening days, depression screening days, alcohol awareness. What those do is they get the word out nationwide. They happen on college campuses around the country. We have our staff, they're out on campus, and so people start to make a connection. Online things, the Ask, Listen, Refer is popular within the UM system. Mental health first aid. Now we have a Respond program, which is even a more elaborate version. It's the visible counselor presence. They're real people. And the Step Up, our bystander training, very popular with all the Title IX issues, but for mental health issues, alcohol, drug issues, any kind of social issues, it's very important. We have workshops, outreach, and then the student of concern committees. And we're all out there trying to find out from different sources, is there somebody we should be looking out for? Is there somebody that we need to be concerned about? Trying to track those patterns. Finally, treatment. I had that as the bottom, and these people will talk more about it, but there's more demands. There's more students on campus. They come in with more issues, and so how do you manage that? Because there isn't unlimited staff. So part of it is what is the intake or screening process to make sure that you try to screen off who needs to be seen now versus who can maybe wait a week or so. How do you manage those wait lists? Because you can't put someone on a 3-week wait list who needs to see a counselor now. And there's issues of confidentiality, FERPA and HIPAA. So you're all familiar with FERPA and HIPAA. Well, in all the counseling centers, they hire licensed counselors and psychologists. So they have their own set of confidentiality issues. So they can't even share information with me or anybody else about, and people want to know, well, tell me this or that or the other. They're not allowed to because of their own licensure. But that's what provides a safe environment for clients to come in and talk with them at the same time. Session limits, how can you make sure everybody gets the sessions they need? Groups become more and more popular because many kinds of treatment are very effective in a group setting, but it also helps manage the process to get people in. And psychiatric services. There's never enough of that on any campus because the needs for some of the specialized medications and working with very severely disturbed people is there. So with that, I turn it back over to our experts who are running the things on a regular basis and to Steve.
Okay, thank you very much. So just kind of give you a quick overview, kind of hit some of the questions and issues that came up. I would also want to add that we placed in front of you what we're calling an infographic. It has information about each of the campuses, the names of the directors and the campus centers, as well as the kinds of issues they see, how many clients they see, the types of issues that present themselves, and what kind of services they provide. And so that's just sort of a handy tool to provide you rather than just giving you straight numbers. So with that, I think I'm going to ask each of the directors, as we know, each of our campuses is somewhat unique, and the students there are unique and present different kinds of issues. So the students at Mizzou may be very different than those at UMSL. So I've asked each of the directors to just do like a couple of minutes to describe some unique aspects, introduce themselves, and then when we have a chance to go through that, then we'll open it up real quickly for questions. But this way gives you a sense of how each campus rolls. So Chris, do you want to start?
Good morning. My name is Chris Sullivan. I'm the clinical director in counseling services at St. Louis. So I just talk a little bit about kind of how the students that we work with, the clients that we work with, are reflective of kind of the University of Missouri St. Louis campus with it. So we have a very diverse student population, as you well know. We're primarily a commuter campus. We have a lot of non-traditional students. Our average age is quite a bit above the traditional age. 27 is our average age students. And many students are first-generation college students with them. A student population comes from the greater St. Louis area with it, and many of these students have what we call complex presentations of mental health concerns. That sounds very jargony, but it means a lot of stuff has happened to them. They've been through a lot of things. They have a lot of students who have past and even current experiences of trauma and abuse with it, difficult economic circumstances with it. We have just students that have had a lot of things that have been going on in their lives, which has led to kind of a higher number, as you might see from the infographic, of students who present to us kind of in crisis or as walk-in clients. It's a challenge for us. Associated with that is a lot of students have a lot of things going on with it. They have work, family, school, job, too many things to be going on in their life, and they still need to balance all of those things. Somewhat associated with that is that financial aspect of it. So many of the students we have, being in an urban area with it, that there's a lot of poverty. We have occasionally, we do encounter students who are homeless with it and just have a basic need for just having their basic needs being met with it. Not all gloom and doom, however. At the same time, these students that are in difficult circumstances, we do find them to be very resourceful. Our students are independent, they're hardworking with it. We don't see as many students that are relying on their parents with it. We do have positive family networks and relationships with it, but our students, one of our assistant deans said our students are scrappy with it. So we work very hard to identify those strengths and those resources that the students have to assist them through their studies and to make a positive contribution.
Okay, super. Patty?
Good morning. My name is Patty Fleck, and I am director at S&T, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity to talk about something that's very important and near and dear to all of our hearts. At S&T, our population, our students are mostly male, STEM-focused, and our student body has been growing. We are a smaller residential campus and a rural setting. Within my center, we have not only counseling, but disability services and student wellness, which is different than student health, and we provide employee assistance program. We have a strong outreach presence on campus, including the Step Up Bystander Intervention Program that focuses on not only Title IX issues, but gender equality and sexual harassment, as well as racial issues or gender issues. We provide something called Basics, which is brief alcohol screening and intervention for college students. That's one of those early intervention prevention services. One of the challenges that we face in Rolla is really, because of our rural setting, is attracting and recruiting qualified mental health professionals to our campus. And that's one of the challenges that we face.
Okay, great. Arnie?
Good morning. My name is Arnie Abels, and I'm the director overseeing the counseling, health testing, and disability services here at UMKC. I'd like to just share a few items related to the uniqueness of our campus and the students that we see at the UMKC Counseling Center. First, I'd like to highlight, similarly to Chris, that our students are very demographically diverse that come to UMKC and to our center. Many of them are commuters. Many of them are first-generation college students and of a non-traditional age as well, many of which are from the Kansas City urban core itself. Secondly, many of our students have experienced some significant experience of trauma in their life, either prior to attending college or while here at UMKC. Thirdly, our students are, that present at our center are layered in their presentations and their presenting concerns, oftentimes very complex, diverse types of issues. Our students also experience and have the presence of poverty, food insecurity, and basic life needs that are not guaranteed. Many of whom, or some of whom, can be homeless and oftentimes do not have that financial safety net associated with a family member or other resource in their background. We have the uniqueness of having multiple campuses with the Volker campus here and also serving the health sciences campus, so a wide range of different students that we are effectively working with. Thank you.
Okay, super. And then last, David Walla?
Yes. I'm David Wallace, Director of the Counseling Center at the University of Missouri in Columbia. Our campus is a large traditional university. We have the whole range of students, so a very small commuter camp population compared to some of our colleagues. Most of our students come from somewhere else and join us in Columbia and live either on campus or very close by. We have a wide range of problems. Some of the ones already mentioned are definitely present with us as well. It's across the range with us, with both students out of very favored environments and others out of background of less favored experiences. One of the things that we've had this fall is a unprecedented surge in demand for services and students needing help. We've responded to that in the best way that we possibly can. We do have two ways that we work with students. One is we have appointments set out toward a future date, and that's been tested these last 5.5 weeks. We've had a 35% increase from last year in demand just for those first 5.5 weeks. But we also have something in place that's constant, and that is a crisis on-call service that's available to students at any point. We will see them face-to-face in the day, plus we have an after-hours on-call service that's always available, licensed person there available to talk with them anytime they call when we're not open. So we have that service, and we let the students make the choice and make the decision about which service they want to request, and we will respond to that request, whether they wish to come in later, not in crisis, I can see you later, or I need to talk to somebody today. We respond to that, and that's what we do. We see them today. We are involved in many ways out on the campus. We do a lot of our outreach activities when things are down as far as our clinical work. When we don't have that demand, we're doing it in the breaks, the summer, the times when students are away from us, where we're relating to the faculty and staff, and we do a lot of things early in the fall before things really build up. This year, we've just had that build up to come about 1.5 months early, and it's been a challenge.
Okay. One of the things, too, that Curator Cups mentioned in his comments earlier in the year was mental health first aid as a program to try to reach out to students and take a proactive stance. And so I'm going to ask David to talk about a new program that's been developed in response to that. It's called Respond. And so he can talk a little bit about the two programs and just elaborate for a second on the new program.
All right. We offered mental health first aid and trained over 800 people in that program at Mizzou from 2011 through 2014. It's a great program. It's a wonderful community-based program, and we used it for a long time. As we did that program, our participants increasingly and consistently really said, we need something a little bit different for the campus. We need something that really does focus on campus and student needs specifically, not just things in general, but specific to students. We need something that will give us less of literally the diagnostic categories of different mental health problems and more help in really actually learning how to approach people and how to get them the help that they need. And so out of that, we developed our own program, something different, something totally unique in the way it stands. Dr. Christy Hutton, who's in the audience on my staff, is the author of that program, and it is called Respond. And I have a copy of actually the teaching guide right here. All of our campuses have talked about it. Our directors are on board. Our outreach people are on board with utilizing this possibility on their campuses as well. The value in Respond is that 70% of the workshop itself, which is an 8-hour training, is interactive. It's really getting people involved in how do you talk to a student about their concerns? How do you draw out what's going on? How do you assess for suicide risk? Yes, we do that, as with all good suicide prevention training. All of that is done in a very interactive environment. Another advantage to this program is that it belongs to us. It's a university copyrighted program. Other universities can buy a license to do it, and we're going that way with it. However, we have agreed we're going to use that, make it available to all of our system campuses at no charge. There's no license fee or anything for any of us. And really the only cost involved is staff time and maybe $1 or $2 for the printing of materials per person. Mental health first aid does cost quite a bit more than that, and it involves a week of training for any certified instructor and quite a bit of money involved in that training as well. So we have found something that we feel very, very good about because it's campus specific, and we have had great response from our folks. We depended on our people who did the training. We've trained students, but most of all, we've had wonderful success with faculty and staff, the people who actually have their hands on those students' lives and can get them the help that they need. And they keep telling us this is what we need. We need something practical, and we need something that will help us do the job effectively. And so we feel wonderful about this particular program.
Do you believe the Respond is as effective as the mental health first aid?
Yes, we do. And we're gathering data on that, and this is showing, yes, it's definitely as effective.
How long have you had it in place?
We've had it in place for 1 year.
And as far as the other campuses, are you doing something similar, or where are you at on that?
UMKC will be bringing Respond on campus after the first of the year in 2016. Members of our team are going to go to MU to observe and have been actively consulting with David's team about the program, and we're very excited to be starting it in 2016.
At S&T, we've also been working with David and his staff, and we are planning, I believe, to attend a session in November to get more information, but we are absolutely very excited about this program.
So we will apparently be many off-campus people coming to Mizzou to attend the training here in November. So we hope to get it going next semester as well.
You know, I would encourage you to make this opportunity available to the other 4-year and 2-year institutions in the state of Missouri, because I think, you know, this is a national problem, and as part of our mission, I think that campus safety in the state of Missouri is something that we ought to do.
We're definitely going to be marketing it, and actually the cost for it, if you buy a license, is actually affordable. It's definitely something that's easy for people to do and to get a hold of.
Well, I would want it to be very generous. You know, as far as if another state wants to come and we'll make some money off of them. I would like for, if another institution in the state wants it, I think we should recover our costs, but let's not try to make money on it.
Okay, so now really we're open, good segue, open question.
I do have a quick question because of how you manage your various programs that you have available for the students. How are you using big data and predictable analytics to manage your various programs that you have at the various universities?
Anybody step up?
So I think the question is, how are we tracking usage, and then how do we use that data to predict and then manage our services?
Yes.
At S&T, we have historically used a program that was developed on campus. We are transitioning to a specific software program called Titanium to better manage that and to do that more securely. When I work with my staff, I look at historical data to plan how many counseling sessions to the best of our ability to predict and then have that available. As David said, we also look at trends and needs for our outreach program and work at responding to those. Yeah.
Several of us have the same in-house software program now. S&T just picked it up, called Titanium. It has very, very broad capabilities and wonderful capabilities. I know Chris used point and click, which is another one that many campuses use that also has the same capabilities. But what we're able to do is keep up literally with years of data about what's going on, what kind of problems have come into the center, what are the issues we're facing, trends, increases in demand, increases in utilization of various kinds of services. And we're also tracking and using Patty and I are closely involved with AUCCCD, which is the national and really international organization for counseling center directors, do a large survey every year where they focus on trends mostly across the country, U.S. and Canada in particular. And we are able to track that data. There's also another group called the Center for Collegiate Mental Health out of Penn State that many of us are connected with, which keeps up with counseling center data heavily. The same data we draw from our Titanium information, Point and Click has access to it now, Chris, as well, where data is gathered literally in the hundreds of thousands of cases. So it's really strong data. We can compare to that, and we can keep aware of the trends and know what services are being demanded and needed and follow those nationally as well as locally. Where are we going? We found out, for instance, just in the last 5 years, anxiety exceeded depression as the #1 issue that students are facing. We saw it nationally, we saw it locally. It just all of a sudden popped up, there it is. So this is the kind of thing I think we're able to do.
I want to echo that as well. At UMKC, we have been using Titanium for approximately 10 years. That data shows that literally from October 1st to the week before Thanksgiving is probably the busiest time of access of our services. We try to use that data not only to manage what we're investing in terms of our programming, but then also around that. So, for example, after Thanksgiving, we know that there's a spike in crises types of clients. So while we're always available, anytime we're open to see anybody that's in crisis, we definitely recognize and are aware and preparing for greater types of crisis at the end of the semester or midterm types of exams. I would note that sometimes there are things that happen on campus that we can't predict that also spike the need for services. And that could be an isolated incident or incident in a residence hall, classroom, those types of things, or just the realities of life and staff. Somebody may be sick, maternity leave, departures of staff that create voids that we have to manage the resources the best we have to meet the needs.
And I'm going to come at that from a little bit different angle. I think we have a good example of what we're doing with that specifically, and this is something that we all do with it. So we've been noticing kind of our trends as, the presenting concerns that we have, and then combining that along with the kind of the anecdotal data about our individual experiences as therapists with it. And we developed a series of workshops that kind of addressed at a community level the sort of things that people run into, the difficulties they have with kind of dealing with difficult emotions. a kind of interpersonal effectiveness, not to reproduce kind of the workshops that are being done around, motivation and time management, things that are, again, very important on university campuses, but what we bring as specialists and experts in our field to help students kind of across the board, just general skills to be able to dealing with some of the emotional distress and difficulties that come along with being a student. So to come in from a little bit different angle with that, I think that's a very specific example of the kind of work that we do as well.
Phil, you had a question?
David, I want to congratulate you on the respond thing. It looks like you're all implementing that, which looks great. I guess I was also interested in, you mentioned an unprecedented demand this first 5 weeks, up 35%. Right. What do you attribute that to?
It's a complexity that I don't know that we have an answer for. We do know that we've been marketing ourselves. We have not been hiding. We've been saying, come, if you have a need, come see us.
That just seems unbelievable, though, that you've had that.
Yeah, it's not. We have colleagues. There's some things going on nationally. The same kind of thing going on some of our sister campuses elsewhere. It's just not totally predictable.
And it doesn't necessarily attribute itself to the freshman class or anything like that.
No, that's not particularly what it's about.
One thing I noticed on these graphs is that both MU and S&T, the percentage on your suicide possibility was both in the roughly 50% range, and the other two campuses are only at about 25. I don't know how accurate that really is, and maybe there's no difference in the way you do that, but is there any reason those two are at 50 and the other two are at 25?
On ours, I think we all tried to do this from the best data that we had, and people can comment. It was for thoughts of suicide at some point, so it's historical. It could be at any point in their lives they had suicidal thoughts. Not so much recently, maybe somewhere, but at any point. Maybe others can comment. That's our actual data.
UMKC is differently. This is based on our closeout year-end data that has been provided, and it's based on if that person, that client that was seen during that fiscal year endorsed suicidality during that 12-month period of time. It does not necessarily reflect a lifetime.
And that would reflect, I think, what we would find at MU if we asked within the last short period of time, have you had those thoughts? I think we would have similar, or maybe a little less, but similar.
And at S&T, one of the ways that we ask students about their suicidal concerns is if there's none at all, to leave that blank, and then we ask if there's little, moderate, or severe. And so if they've responded at all, even if I've just had thoughts of death or dying, I would probably put a 1. And so I think that reflects some of that.
I'd have to agree with that. There certainly are probably differences among the campuses and the student populations. Unfortunately, I just don't think we have the data really to kind of speak to saying specifically how the campuses are different. This is, a single year as well. There may be variations along each year as well. So.
Let me ask one more question. When we talk about our students and they have all these problems, are we talking about only the students that you have dealt with? We're not talking about the entire population of the campus. We're talking about the students you've dealt with. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what's here. That's right. Although we do have some data on the others, there's many studies.
So I was surprised that on the top presenting issues, that the Title IX issues, the sexual assaults and things on campus, that we have, under President Wolf's leadership, really overhauled the policies and hopefully given you the infrastructure, and have been working hard to implement, and you've been a part of that, I'm sure. And so this year we have all these brochures and some trainings that are going on, some outreach. I'm going to ask a series of short questions, I hope. But have you noticed an increase this fall in people coming in about what we would call Title IX issues or related issues? Has the publicity, has the time and effort and money that we've put into it proven results here in the short term? And then I'll tag a couple of other questions onto that. I trust, because you are mandatory reporters, that you have the duty to report in aggregate. Well, when we have numbers that we just received for the past year, we have the numbers of folks that reported. So without reporting on cases, kind of like an EAP, you get the aggregate number of people that came in for depression, the aggregate number that had financial issues. So are those figures of your clients seen, are those part of the recent statistics that we got, campus and system, for people coming in on Title IX issues? So 2 questions there. Increased rate of seeing, and do you aggregate, and is that part of what we see so that we might expect a bump this year and hopefully a bump in future years of people coming forward with issues that previously wouldn't come forward?
Yeah, I'm gonna, so here in St. Louis, we're organized a little bit differently. Our Title IX victim advocate with it is located in counseling services, so I'm in daily contact. I mean, she works in my office, so we have seen more students coming forward that are presenting what we'll call Title IX complaints, so that certainly is making a big difference with it. I think we are more, the increased visibility has been a powerful message to the campus about the kind of support and the resources that we are providing to the students with it. We are at the same time still working out how we are going to be kind of putting together those numbers and the reporting pieces of our aggregate numbers with it. We are confidential resources on campus, so we're not mandated reporters in the sense of the vast majority of our campus colleagues with it. So it's a little bit different with that, but
Even in the aggregate? So
yeah, in the aggregate, we're able to provide that. We are working on that, and it's a challenge. I was speaking with, earlier before, I was speaking with Emily Love about this, and we have some challenges just about putting that together, because it's a new system for us with it, so, but we are working to address that.
I've got I'm sorry, John, are you done?
I have a few more,
Oh,
but...
go ahead,
but-
go ahead.
So there are some non-mandatory reporters, some that are clear in the statute, and there's a kind of a gray area. And at least on the Columbia campus, there is, in the brochure that was published, a non-mandatory reporter category where you can go get not counseling, but some initial advice. I think this is a continuing dialogue. Have you reached out, or have they reached out to you so that they're fully informed, so they're giving good advice? Because this is the first opportunity for people to get advice as to where to go. One of the resources is you. So is there been a connectivity there?
Yes, on the Columbia campus, we have what we call RSVP, which is Relationship and Sexual Violence Prevention Center. They are also advocates, and we have firm and full confidence in their ability. We worked together for several years now, even before the press, of really pulling this together into a more solid form. And so we feel very confident in them. We're not mandated to report. They are not either. So students can go to them in confidence that their information will not be shared. And that's important to have that element present. But we're also working very closely with our Title IX administrator, new Title IX administrator, wonderful relationship that we have with her and her staff. And we're finding, it's interesting that Dr. Hutton and I were talking on the way over here this morning. It's anecdotal, but right now we've had, well, I don't say a lot, several might be a good way to say it, referrals from Title IX directly. People who have experienced sexual assaults within these last few weeks, they have come to us, and anecdotally, I'm saying probably that's up. That is part of our number here. That's more than we've had before. They're coming to us. That's the important part. We want them to come.
It seems like the MU campus is ahead of the other campuses in implementation, the response program, this other non-mandatory reporter. I love what you're doing with response, and I love the fact that you're making it broadly available. I hope that to the extent you're doing the prototype in Columbia, that you continue to share with the other campuses who don't have the same resources that we do in Columbia. It's great.
Is there any effort to survey incoming students, the students and their families as to mental health issues, to possibly identify incoming students that may have issues that you can track and keep contact with and try to help and try to do preventative actions with?
I'm not aware of any specific effort to survey. I will note that, at least at UMKC, and I believe the other campuses as well, we do various programs at orientation of students that are matriculating into our system. I know those personal interactions, when I've done presentations, have yielded significant connections with the offices that I oversee in terms of counseling, health, testing, and disability services, and bridging the access of those services and getting registered and into our systems as quickly as possible so that they have those supports in place when they hit the ground on day one.
I would echo what Arnie is saying about there's no overarching system of that, and there's some issues of concern with that. But on the other hand, we work very, very closely with our residential life people, residential life staff. We help train them. They keep an eye on those, particularly those first-year students, very, very closely, and refer them to us, walk them over. So we have a great connection as far as them keeping an eye on any problems that may be there or develop. Right now, I think our students are coming more often with saying, I have a pre-existing problem. I have something I'm dealing with. Parents are telling us, we're concerned about our student, and can you help us with any needs that may develop here? So I think we have a more open, transparent process going than we ever have had with keeping up with those students.
So I'd like to first thank you for what you do. It's really amazing and very necessary. What are the inhibitors that you see, or the investments that need to be made to have a more safe and secure, healthy environment for all our students? What do you need?
They're remarkably shy. Go for it.
Patty, you go for that.
Thanks, David. I think your ongoing support is what we need, and your trust that we really care about our students and are doing our very best to put services and resources into place to not only make them healthy and happy, but successful. I think the other thing that is helpful is realizing that each campus is unique, and to allow us to develop what will be successful and effective on our campus.
I would add, and it's evident to us that although we've gotten great support on our campus, and I cannot say how much that's meant to us, we can always use more staff. There's just no doubt about it. It is, we look at suggested ratios, people who've studied it and looked at it for years. It's a common issue among particularly large universities, I think probably across the board with most university campuses. But additional staff can be helpful, and we do recognize that is a constant challenge as our universities grow, and ours has hugely in the last 10 or 15 years.
How many more staff members do you need and at what time?
You guys are probably.
Here's the funny thing, I always coach these people to not get up and ask for money in front of you. So you've opened the doors, so now you can. That's why I think they're being so timid. Go for it. It's a legitimate request.
Well, I want to just acknowledge just deep appreciation and respect for the curators, all the chancellors, the vice chancellors, and the teams that support counseling and mental health services on all the campuses. I just really value that leadership, because I think that modeling starts from the top of the importance and the value of it. I know at UMKC, we're never going to turn down a gift of an opportunity, but
Need, not want.
yeah. I will just note that Unfortunately, a number of years ago, we did lose our psychiatrist. We only had 6 hours, but it was a great, important 6 hours. So we have no psychiatry care on campus right now. We lost a doctoral intern a couple of years ago, so if we could get that back, it would be great. And definitely there's more than probably enough needs to have at least 2 more staff on board to meet even basic IX standards, which is kind of the established norm for student staff ratio.
And I think you'll notice in St. Louis, we do have the lowest level of staffing in the system with it, so won't put a specific number on that, but just kind of gently point that out.
Well, I have a question about St. Louis in that all the other campuses are about at 5%. You know, Rolla's a little higher, I think Columbia's a little lower, but UMSL is at, according to my calculator, about 2%. Is that a reflection of your student body being older, more part-time, you know?
I think that does play a factor with it, and I don't want to blame our staffing numbers as well with it, but I wonder about that. If it's, I don't think we're able to provide nearly as much outreach as well. So I think our efforts to kind of make our services well-known and available, it is a challenge when we struggle to keep up with the demands of the people that are requesting our services with it as well.
I didn't want to interrupt the asks, so go ahead.
We currently have a full-time position open that we've had a couple failed searches for. So getting that filled, and because of the consultant and the support that we received, we also gained a case manager position that's not reflected in that, and that's made a huge difference. So I would say getting that one staff person filled, and I think sometimes that's a matter of, again, recruiting to a rural area and being competitive with salary. And then beyond that, I think I'd need to really see how we were able to do with that, and before I could then think about really what do we need beyond that.
With us, and I'm thinking about accreditation standards, we're at present trying to reestablish our accreditation with the International Association of Counseling Services. That was held by us years before my coming there, and yet dropped, and we're going to get that back. It's not a mandatory thing to do this, but with that in mind, with the ideas of the university growth and the needs, I have a goal of adding 6 staff within the next 5 years.
And I did want to add one other point to that, to not make this. We did with our Title IX funds and the efforts on campus, we have made it a priority to providing mental health services. So one of the positions, we did have a position that was recently created, again, as I referred to earlier, that she serves as a victim advocate as well, and she does have a client caseload as well. So it's not a full-time position, but we certainly are making some efforts on campus to address that and to bring some more resources to our office.
Can I give you a tip on how to get more resources?
Yes, please.
Okay. I would also like to echo what you said, is the leadership on each of the 4 campuses is fully behind this and passionate and supportive of you and what you do. So it's not a matter of they don't think it's a priority. It's a resource-constrained environment that we live in. That being said, it took a crisis for us to take a look at what we're doing relative to Title IX, sexual assault, harassment, discrimination. It took a crisis, and we responded to the crisis, and we invested in people and processes that allows us to be better at proactively reducing this through education and also responding in an equitable manner. From a mental health standpoint, if you all can collaborate more, share like a best practice on Respond, or come forward with proposals that will lift all boats, all 4 campuses' boats, plus the hospital, we would be very interested from a system standpoint in doing that. So my point to you is, if you're looking for more resources and you're getting, we can't afford it from looking at the P&L for your particular campus, I get that, but also don't lose hope. There are opportunities if you come together for additional resources at the system level that we can invest in, and we love to invest in things that we can replicate in all 4 campuses and see measurable differences in that. So don't lose hope that you get a no. Get together, figure it out, and also, it shouldn't be just for resources. You all, I would suggest, should be talking to each other on a regular basis, sharing best practices, because what hit David in terms of 35% increase in appointments might be hitting you the next semester, or maybe you can understand from others as to what are the drivers to this, and that we can all learn from that. So we would be very interested, we being from the system, as well as the leaders of the 4 campuses, is taking a look at an investment, a unique investment, that will lift all boats.
You noted something regarding best practices, and I'd also like to echo just the reality and the value of continuing professional development funds to keep the staff that are so dedicated at all 4 of our campuses on the cutting edge of how to do the most effective mental health services as possible.
And that really leads into what I was going to say, the AUCCCD, which is the Association for University and College Counseling Center Directors, has been phenomenal, both in terms of that professional development, but networking support, consultation, and professional identity, and to have the resources to participate in that has been really, really helpful. David and I are both on the board of directors of that, and being able to attend that conference is really, really significant and powerful.
Phenomenal experience.
You good? Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much for your attention and focus on this.
We take a 5-minute break while we get set up again, and prompt 5 minutes, so.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda is the Kansas City Strategic Plan highlights, and Chancellor Morton.
Oh, thank you, Chairman Cups. Actually, you're going to hear more from our provost. After your retreat at Big Cedar, the provost made some comments, and I thought this might be a great opportunity for you to get a little bit more of that. And it's really related to our strategy, in that when you think about what our strategic plan is all about, it is about the steps we will take to achieve our mission and vision, and it's all about the future. The issue here is that we make assumptions today about what that future state should be to position us to equip our students to be successful in their careers. Now, the question is, we can almost guarantee you that state moves a bit. And the question is, how do you understand and continue to assure that the strategic plan that you have is still relevant? Well, I like to call that doing strategic surveillance. That is, looking at those assumptions that you've made about the future and finding ways to assure that they remain relevant. Well, if you take a look at the background for our provost, you'll see that she's been doing surveillance. In fact, she's written about the future, the future university, what it should be like, how it should integrate issues like technology, research, service, in order to provide that optimum environment for students to learn in. So what you're going to hear more about is those views. She's going to share some of the intelligence that she's gained in her surveillance. Provost, pick them up.
Thank you, Chancellor. Good morning. I am so very honored to be here. And I just want to take one moment, because this is my first opportunity to stand in front of the curators and University of Missouri system officials, to just want to recognize that I know that I'm in a very rare position. I'm in a rare position because I have been asking the same question for 30 years, and I've gotten to ask that question in every format that an academic works. I've gotten to ask the same question in my teaching, in my research, in my service, in my administration, in consulting work that I do, and in community engagement. And that question has been around, how do we use technological innovation to better support academic success? And I'm even now in a greater rare position in that I have the opportunity to come home to do that work. I am a native Kansas Cityan, and I find that as a true gift. But it's important for me that people understand I didn't come to UMKC to come home. I came home to be at UMKC. I truly do believe that this is an institution that is already great, but is uniquely positioned to be the model urban research university of the 21st century. And here's why. There are already significant strengths at UMKC. The quality of the faculty and staff, which you just saw modeled at breakfast, the student demographic and the diversity and the encompassing perspective that the students bring. The spirit of innovation among the academics and the leaders here, which is part of the Kansas City culture, but part UMKC. The programs that are available here are uniquely situated to provide 21st century skills, whether that's the entrepreneurship and innovation programs, design, the liberal arts, the School of Computing and Engineering, urban planning, education, conservatory, and the health sciences. Urban institutions are the institutions that are uniquely poised to grow at this moment in higher education's history. The infrastructure investments that have been and are being made to support student success, facilities, advising. The leadership team here, the faculty senate, the deans, the vice chancellors are amazingly in agreement as I talk to them about what the future should be for UMKC. There's a chancellor who, as you saw last evening, is a community and fundraiser non-parallel. And the community support here, you may not realize, is not typical for higher education at this moment in its history. So when I looked at those and said, what can I give and how can I contribute for my moment of stewardship with UMKC, I was struck by the strategic plan that exists and how it ties in with the typical goals of a university. As you all understand, universities are about teaching, research, and service. And when I look at the goals of the system and the goals of this particular campus, I understand that with teaching, our job is to grow enrollments and to help students retain and succeed at much higher rates than they have in the past. I understand with research, we need to promote high-quality scholarship that is through publications and grants, and to do more of that. And I understand that this is a unique city in terms of our opportunities for community service and to engage through program innovation and research-based solutions. So when I came and looked at the strategic plan, you are all familiar with strategic plans for the University of Missouri system. There are 7 themes here, each and every one of them very important, but I am not about to ask people who are working so hard to work more or to change the focus. What I am about to ask is for people to work smarter and in more integrated fashion. And that really is contingent on recognizing changes that are occurring in higher education and how we can leverage those to our advantage. In that diagram, which I do not expect anyone to read, there are some baseline cultural aspects of what we need to focus on, fundamentally to embrace diversity. That's so important in higher education because diversity is a way that we recognize that there are many right answers, there are many perspectives, and that this is a coming together of community. But there are 4 particularly academic themes in this that I want to draw out today and just speak briefly about where I see us now and where I see us moving in the future. The first theme is placing student success at the center. Our 3rd theme on this diagram is promoting research and economic development. Our 4th theme is advancing urban engagement. And our 7th theme is increasing sources of revenue. I'd like to take just a few moments to talk about each one of those. As it relates to theme 1, which is placing student success at the center, that really has to be about better retaining students and helping them complete. But we have to understand how to better retain students and help them complete. And that's where I think what we have at public research universities is an opportunity to bring together the best of the great faculty and the great facilities that we have always had and that are the envy of smaller institutions, of privates, of for-profits, but to do that in a way where we also learn from others about how to start down the path of providing the best of student support. And to that end, I've promised several people that I would tell a quick story here, and I don't want to get too derailed by the story, but I'd be happy to come back to it. Leo mentioned, the Chancellor mentioned in my previous work, I've had the opportunity to work on technological innovation and particularly related to online education. And in that role, I've done quite a bit of research and looked at other universities, nonprofit, for-profit, public research, comprehensive teaching, and systems and how online education was integrated. I had an opportunity to go to an institution that we may not think of as a competitor, but one that is growing tremendously and based on innovation, and that is Southern New Hampshire University. And I'm sure if you watch TV anywhere, you probably see an advertisement for this institution. As I went to the Southern New Hampshire University campus and got to spend a few days with them looking at their operations, here's what I found, and here's what we need to learn from. What Southern New Hampshire University and other institutions like it are doing is taking their catalog of 600 or 700 courses and customizing it into 200 different programs. And they find which economic sectors, which cities need which kinds of programs to grow their stature, and they advertise those programs in that area. Once they advertise those programs, they immediately drive prospective students to a website. What happens on that website is that students actually see a live agent pop up like you see on other websites, and the live agent starts asking a few questions, and within 10 minutes, the live agent has all the application information they need from the student. Then they ask, would it be okay with you if we pay to get your transcripts from other institutions, and we'll tell you within about 48 hours if you're accepted and what financial aid package that we will have for you. And while you're waiting, we'll have you do an assessment to see if you're ready to engage in online education. We'll have you meet with some of the people who would be your peers, and we'll give you an entree into our learning management system so you can try a sample course and see if you like it. By the way, we'll also assign you a concierge, not an advisor, and a concierge is a person who has a caseload of 1 to 30 or 1 to 50 as opposed to 1 to 250 or 1 to 500. And that concierge works with that student for the first 15 credit hours and watches them in the learning management system. And anytime they're late for an assignment or anytime they see a pattern of missing assignments or doing poorly in grades, they contact the instructors and say, you need to give some extra help to this student. And beyond that, they review every course with instructional designers, instructional technologists at the end of a semester, and they say, there's a pattern of many students failing in this course. So we need to do something here to see what we're doing, and we need to make sure it matches with our learning outcomes. If that doesn't give us all pause, then I don't know what would. So to my point, one of the things that is my job now as provost is to work with the faculty and to work with the vice chancellor of student affairs and to ask the question, how are we best using data? How are we best using information technology? How are we best doing our work to make sure that we are giving students as much possible personalization as we can, so that we know that we are now building bridges as opposed to gatekeeping in higher education. Beyond that, and a second most important aspect to that, because I understand the system of higher education, we cannot have student success if we don't have faculty and staff success. Because faculty and staff are the heart and the engine of the university. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we best prepare faculty to be able to provide for students what they need in a fully comprehensive university? And let me talk a little bit about what I believe a fully comprehensive university will be in the 21st century, because this really gets to instructional format. We have got to get students where they are. And where students are is on campus, of course, and that's an experience you want the 18 to 24-year-old to have, because they're young, because they haven't developed the best study skills, they don't know how to self-manage so well, they need peers, they need a network, they need the model and the mentoring of faculty. But increasingly you see online programs being successful and not being challenged anymore in the way that they used to be challenged about their quality. But generally who you see enrolled in those programs are adults and graduate students. So we need to recognize who online programs are for, and we also need to recognize that the question of technology has brought us to an answer that's been long coming, and that is, what is high quality education? And the beauty of technology is it's informed us that high quality education is highly engaging education. And so I believe that actually the future of higher education is in hybrid programs where when students are on campus, they're engaged in discourse and they're engaged in activity with their faculty and staff mentors. And when they're off campus, they're experiencing community at convenience and independence with interaction. And we're using the best of technology to make that happen. But increasingly, you will see rhetoric around competency-based education. And competency-based education simply means that we reverse engineer an experience so that we are very clear about the learning outcomes that we're trying to achieve, that we map our assessments, we map our practice and feedback activities, we map our lectures and our demonstrations to those things. And if somebody has actually mastered that skill, we give them an opportunity to demonstrate that before we put them in a classroom with no value added. So I believe that the comprehensive university of the 21st century is going to be able to offer education in all four of those formats. Our challenge is to help prepare faculty and staff to do that work. And I don't know why we think faculty and staff should naturally be able to do that, because faculty and staff are here because they're passionate about their subject matter and the work that they do, whether that's biology or philosophy or English composition or organizational development. But faculty and staff historically have never been trained to teach. They haven't also always been trained to do the management of research, to handle budgets. And department chairs haven't been trained how to administer that for faculty and staff. And deans may not have been trained how to do that work as well. So you'll see from me a commitment to, and I appreciate that Chancellor Morton, and I also appreciate that President Wolf have strongly encouraged and supported the commitment to faculty and staff development, to new technologies, and I'll talk in a moment about data-driven decision-making and developmental approach. So that talks a little bit about academic innovation. Just one further point on academic innovation in order to achieve our goals of student success has to do with making sure we have the programs we need. And we know we need programs in STEM. We know in a place like Kansas City, we need to think about what public health means. We know that in arts and sciences, we need to better tell the story of the great work that our humanists and our social scientists and others do. And that's really, I think, about translating what we do to the community. And I believe that we also need to look at how we continue to build and grow the connections between our professional schools and the community. That gets to theme 3, which I will quickly talk about, which is promoting research and economic development. I've already foreshadowed the idea that we have to help faculty to do that work by providing the infrastructure they need and the professional development opportunities they need. And in Kansas City, we have to understand that our opportunities, as you saw again this morning at breakfast, are for translational, interdisciplinary, and urban research. And our greater opportunity is to engage students in that work, because not only does it help students to retain and complete, it provides people who move into the community who can do that work and who can be entrepreneurial and who can help us in the upward cycle that we need to establish. Theme 4 is advancing urban engagement, and again, that is closely tied to what I'm talking about. But beyond translational research, again, in that spirit of interweaving and integrating the work that we do, we have to make sure we have the infrastructure to actually promote and track and make sure that service learning experiences are successful. We have to provide the internships that connect us with community. We have to recognize that we have a role in workforce development and that we have a role in economic development and we have a role in quality of life, and that those 3 are an integrated group, because workforce development is really saying an individual can take care of themselves and their family and be a contributor and provide. Economic development is saying business voices matter because they are the engine to promoting success in the community. And quality of life is saying none of us want to be here if the community and civic mindedness isn't at the heart of what we do. Those have to work together. And finally, The one thing that is not really in the circle that I see, that is what I hope will be a hallmark of my provostship at UMKC, is to do all that work in a data-driven and developmental way. Because if we have good data, and if we help people use good data, then we can be the best of what higher education is. Because ultimately, I said for 30 years I've been doing work on technology-driven innovation in higher education. I do that because I understand higher education among all enterprises may be the most human-centric of any. People are at the heart of new questions. People are at the heart of learning. People are at the heart of community. And we have to use new systems and new structures in order to free people up from the tyranny that technology can be, so they can go home at night and be passionate and excited about what they learned or what they taught. And that's not just teachers teaching and students learning. That's teachers learning and students teaching. And that we can do that in a way that we have an integrated, rich, exciting environment of education in all that we do. Thank you very much. May I answer any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The other day at our orientation, you made a presentation, and some of it you gave again today. But the one thing that really stood out to me is you talk about this hybrid of teaching in the classroom and then online.
Right.
And I said, well, isn't it going to be hard to get the professors to buy into that and to understand how to teach online?
Right.
And you said it's something like, no, that's going to be fairly easy. Would you explain that to the crowd?
So I say that looking at my faculty colleagues in the back who are smiling at me. But let me explain. So one of the things that I bring to the table is that my background and my academic expertise are in the areas of instructional design and instructional technology. And when I talk about the fact that faculty have never really actually been taught in any systematic way to teach, what I know as an instructional designer is technology is a format. And there is no great online education or terrible online education, just inherent to the technology, and there's no great on-campus instruction or terrible on-campus instruction, just inherent to the place. What makes good instruction good is when people understand that we reverse engineer instruction just the same way as we reverse any other goal that we want to achieve. And that means teaching faculty, first of all, how to write a good learning outcome that's behavior-based, and how to find the right measure for that learning outcome and map assessments to that so that we can make sure that our assessments actually measure the outcomes we want to achieve. And then to work back from there and to say, all right, if that's the assessment, what type and range of practice and feedback experience do students need? And those can be many kinds of practice and feedback experiences. And then in order to prepare students for that, what demonstration do we need to have? What do they need to discuss so that we can know that they understand the verbal cues? And what do I need to present as the instructor to get them ready? And it really isn't rocket science. However, there is as much variation in that as there is objectives we want to teach and subject matter areas that we're working under. So it's giving faculty the opportunity to learn that in a way that they've never had the opportunity to learn that before, which is why I'm so committed to the idea of engaging faculty in developmental opportunities that can help give them the skills that will excite them about the work that they do and excite them because they'll see their students succeed at different and greater rates. And to me, fundamentally, again, looking at what the historical mission of higher education has been, higher education thousands of years ago was started as a conservatory, literally in the model of gatekeeping with moats and bridges to protect and conserve our civilization and artifacts, and to keep and to let those who wanted to be scholarly in and to keep those who didn't want to be scholarly out. That infrastructure has created lots of unintended consequences, and we are now moving to a point where we understand that good education is bridge building. We have a goal, and we have a student somewhere minus the goal, and our job is to build a strong bridge, that gets students to that goal. Thank you.
I'd like to say, wow, I think we've just heard the future of education, and you've phrased it very well. I have a couple of questions. One is, you said that more of our online courses are being taken by graduates and adults. That surprises me a little bit because the younger the person, usually the more acclimated they are to online learning. Is that as it should be, or should we anticipate that the undergraduates will increasingly be interested in and maybe even favoring the hybrid, let's say the balance between online and classroom?
They will certainly favor the hybrid, and they will favor it in these ways. And when I say they will, I will say that from data I have from other sources and other institutions, I can tell you they are. And what they're doing, first of all, in favoring hybrid is a hybrid, or what we would otherwise call a blended class. And these terms are all used interchangeably, and I'm not sure they should be. A blended class means that I don't bring a student to campus and lecture to them when they can watch the lecture on YouTube. And they can actually watch the lecture better on YouTube because they can fast forward, they can rewind, they can listen again, and they can take notes, and they can slow down if they want to, and they can do it when it's convenient for them. So I better have a blended course where I use technology to do presentation, and I use technology in smart ways for discussion. But when students are on campus, they're highly engaged with the instructor and their peers. So that's one aspect. Secondly, you see course taking patterns such that a student will enroll, and students self-select. Interestingly, students know what they need and why they need it. And generally what you hear from 18 to 24-year-olds is, I'm in an on-campus program because I want to get past high school. I want new peers who have the same subject matter interests that I do. But what they will say is, I want to pick up a course here and there that's online for particular reasons. That may be their electives. That may be because they don't perceive that a course is particularly important or foundational to them, or simply because they're working or they have time commitments and they need to stay on track. And they know that it's not their ideal, but it's the only way to keep moving through to completion. So recognizing why students are taking online courses is important. The people who are enrolling in online programs are generally the adult and the graduate student. And generally they're doing that because a graduate student is pursuing a degree generally for a different reason than an undergraduate. And adults generally have many more constraints and limitations about being able to be on campus, and they're working within those constraints to deal with that. But generally, if you look at numbers, again, at other institutions that are moving in robust ways into online education, you'll find that, and I could give you numbers for places like the University of Maryland, University College, and UMass Online, and SUNY Open. And generally what you'll see is there's a percentage around 10 to 20% of existing students that'll move into a fully online program. About a good 30 to 40% of students will pick up an online course in an existing program. And then the question is, how many programs do you want to build? So
if I understand you, your statement about online courses meant just online, not a blended, not a hybrid.
Right.
That's what your reference was.
Exactly.
All right, my other question is, I've been operating on the assumption that eventually the online aspect, be it blended, hybrid, or synchronistic or asynchronistic, would ultimately reduce the cost.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had three different buckets, if you had experiential learning, which we're going to hopefully increasingly do, even though it's more costly,
Right.
and you take that out of the equation and you look at classroom and you look at online, this may be an unfair question, but do you think it is likely that increasing use of online mechanisms may save dollars and avoid drastic classroom expansion while still accommodating larger population of students?
It's such a
That's a
wonderful
leading question.
There's such a wonderful question, and there's so many answers to that you're going to have to tell me when to stop talking. So I'll give you that warning right now. And I should admit to you that I worked with colleagues at Purdue University and at Ball State University to do a presentation, and I'm happy to share the paper with you, to the Indiana Commission for Higher Education on this very topic, working with the Western Collaborative for Educational Technology with background data for that. And I've also worked with Ithaca Foundation, Bill Bowen, who is Chancellor Emeritus of Princeton and President Emeritus of the Mellon Foundation, in a gold standard study they did to look at these questions as well. And what we found in those scenarios are there are efficiencies that can be gained. This is what Bill Bowen found in his group. There are efficiencies that can be gained in the development of materials, but not the delivery of materials. Because again, you still have to get that human-centric aspect, the one-to-one nature of engagement, and sometimes technology-mediated engagement is actually harder. On the other hand, there are opportunities as we grow our expertise in this area to find efficiencies if we can, again, reverse engineer, and if we can have instructional artifacts that can be shared. So for one example, that you already see this in things like e-text, which tremendously reduces cost to students. So I don't know, and I think the data at this point, we're uncertain if it's really going to actually drive down the cost or if it's going to reallocate cost and where those reallocations are going to be because of that engaging nature. And it ultimately gets down to the question of how much do students need to actually be present and to be in conversation with others. But generally where you see it again is, can we reduce development? Can we share artifacts? And I will tell you honestly something that the for-profit education provider, and by for-profit I mean the education sector, the companies that are out there, and the companies are growing tremendously, that provide educational services. This is why faculty development and recognizing the power of our faculty in terms of our intellectual property and recognizing the value of our institutions matters. Our opportunity to drive down cost is to have our faculty work with us to develop artifacts online that they might otherwise have put in a textbook, and you had a publishing company in the middle of charging additional prices. So where we're going to see those opportunities are for students to lower the cost of what they experience, development of our work, but not in the actual act of instruction. So to your point about classrooms, and let me again take this opportunity to thank you for the work that you're doing to provide the space utilization study for all of our campuses. I had a wonderful conversation with those folks yesterday from Pauline and Associates about these very topics. It's going to mean we have a different kind of classroom, and it may mean that we have more informal spaces, but for a certain segment of students who will always need to be on campus, we will need to provide those spaces. For a certain segment of students who have learned how to learn and can use technology to do that, we might not need the same kind of spaces. So I think, and most of the research shows so far, it's certainly going to look different. Not sure about the expense. The other aspect that plays into that is about what does technology infrastructure cost? What is the bandwidth? How much bandwidth do we need? What is the charge for bandwidth? I got my cell phone bill yesterday and I'm not feeling like bandwidth is cheap. But I think recognizing where do we shift those costs and what does that look like? So we have a lot of those things to take into consideration as well.
Thank you. I look forward to your further thoughts on that. I think
Thank
you're
you.
on the right track.
There's a lot to learn there.
Provost, I'm glad you took a breath because we do need to move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation.
My pleasure.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Cindy, would you call the roll?
Curator Covington?
Yes.
Curator Cups?
Yes.
Curator Graham?
Yes.
Curator Henriksen?
Yes.
Curator Phillips?
Yes.
Curator Snowden?
Yes?
Curator Steelman?
Yes.
Curator Stewart?
Aye.
Okay, all votes in favor?
The President's report.
Good morning.
Morning.
I have the good fortune to represent the progress of our strategic plan. The credit should be given where credit's due with the leadership that is in front of me and those that aren't here, and there's lots to brag about. Before I get into the content of the strategic plan, I used to hate to follow Leo because I felt like the warm-up band following the performer that everybody came to see. Now I hate to follow Barbara in terms of presentation, but I'll do my best to try to enlighten you in terms of what's going on. What is important, do you want me to do the slides, or you guys going to do the slides? How about I do them today? Ta-da. What's important, though, before I get into the progress against the strategic plan, is to augur us all down to why we even do strategic planning. It's about having clear actions and plans that gets us towards fulfilling our mission statement. As you can see up here, this is the University of Missouri System mission statement, which has not changed. But in that mission statement, I'd like to just point out some things that are important. Specifically, we are the only, not one of 3, 1 of 5, or 1 of 6. We're the only. There's only one institution in the state of Missouri that has the research and doctoral level responsibilities. And as you know, we do about 90% of the research on our 4 campuses that occurs in the state of Missouri. Also, we have the responsibility to deliver value to our constituents, and as part of delivering value is we have to be very active in the discovery, dissemination, preservation, and application of knowledge, as well as we have to apply that knowledge in everything that we do. And you heard some examples of how you can use technology to do a better job of applying that knowledge or discovering that knowledge in the interaction between faculty and students. But we have this awesome responsibility of educating the 77,000 students on our campus, but also the continued learning for all 6 million Missourians so that we improve everything that happens in the state of Missouri. So this is a very, very significant responsibility that is on the shoulders of all of us. But one of the underpinnings in our ability to deliver on this mission statement is a fundamental responsibility for all institutions of higher education, which is maintain, support academic freedom. And academic freedom is something that's being discussed recently, and I want to talk about the importance of academic freedom and how these discussions have occurred over time. As everybody knows, U.S. enjoys global leadership in the higher education industry, and it's enjoyed global leadership since the inception of higher education, and will continue to enjoy global leadership as long as we protect academic freedom. What's occurred here in the state of Missouri relative to discussions about academic freedom, I need to do a little bit of a history lesson. Back in the 70s, in 1972, there was a collected rule and regulation that spoke to academic freedom, and the reason why was there was some debate about what academic freedom should be and how we can protect that. And the board concluded back in 72, and let me read it, in Collected Rule and Regulation 310.010, the Board of Curators of the University of Missouri believes that academic freedom and the economic security of its academic staff are indispensable in the success of the University of Missouri in fulfilling its obligations to its students and to society. Underneath that, the general principles of academic freedom that were defined is institutions of higher education are established and maintained for the common good, which depends upon the free search of truth and its expression. Academic freedom is essential to the purposes and applies to both teaching and research. Freedom in research is fundamental to the advancement of truth. Then it goes on to talk about faculty members' responsibilities and that they're entitled to freedom in the classroom and in discussing their subjects, and that they are, as members of the educational institution and members of a learned profession, they should at all times be accurate, exercise appropriate restraint, show respect for the opinions of others, and make every effort to indicate that they do not speak for the institution when they're speaking on behalf of a particular topic. Also included in this collected rule and regulation is the importance of tenure And the principle behind tenure, some people think it's never-ending job security. In fact, it's not. It is intended to be the right to be free from dismissal without cause. Tenure is indispensable to the success of an institution of higher education in fulfilling its obligation for the common good. So academic freedom is going to be talked about more and more in the upcoming legislative sessions, both here locally and on a national basis. We have to continue to protect academic freedom at all costs, and it will have to continue to guide our decisions the decisions we make now and the decisions that we make for years to come. Some examples that are important for us to understand and appreciate recently of how we've protected academic freedom. In 2007, Gordon Lamb, president at the time, condemned a proposal to ban the type of embryonic stem cell research he believed would permanently destroy the future of research in the state and its universities. This statement reaffirmed the university's protection of academic freedom. Later, there was a resolution passed by the board to support research in that regard. In 2011, Interim President Steve Owens issued Executive Order 38 to equate students' academic freedom to that of faculty in order to encourage students to exchange ideas and engage in discussions during class. This order protects the discussion from unauthorized publication. So the freedom to have those good discussions without unauthorized publication was passed in 2011. Also in 2014, the university devoted resources to protect the intellectual property of the faculty in its syllabi by successfully defending a lawsuit filed by the National Council on Teacher Quality. Again, protecting the rights and the ownership of intellectual property by our faculties, protecting the need to maintain academic freedom. So some things that are concerning to us as leaders of the University of Missouri system is that now some of the research that we're doing becomes at risk. Close to us is the Stowers Institute that does a lot of some very significant research that are really going to be solving some huge problems. And when you think historically about what happened in the past and some of the research that have come out of higher education, like blood transfusions, polio vaccinations, even organ transplants, those were very hotly disputed and questioned at the time, but now it's common practice and accepted that this is life-changing research that has come out of it. So if we are to perform and fulfill the mission that has been established in our mission statement, but it's also been established as to why we constitutionally exist, is we need to protect the right to have academic freedom on our campuses. And we're going to continue to make sure that the decisions that we make are informed by that principle of academic freedom. So when you see some things that are being announced or covered in the press, it's because we are thinking about what's the right thing to do, and one of the right things to do is make sure that we promote the free exchange of ideas between faculty and students, as well as faculty in the community and faculty to some of our industry experts. So I wanted to make sure that you appreciate the importance of that, because I believe the level of conversation is going to increase on that in the future, and I'd hope that you join me and the rest of our leadership team in making sure that we protect our academic freedom. Going back to the progress on the strategic plan. As I said earlier, the strategic plan is intended to define the steps that we take to fulfill the mission statement that's in front of us. And we have reasons to be proud. We're halfway through the 5-year planning process that we put in place 2.5 years ago. As you can see, some statistics in terms of the largest student class that we've ever had on our 4 campuses, the highest quality of students as measured by the ACT score or measured by the percentage of underrepresented minorities. Also, we saw student graduates increase by 6%, just under 6% last year, up to 18,000. Again, all-time highs. You can see the rest of them. These don't happen by accident. These were specific items that we were focusing on in the strategic plan, and I'm just representing the hard work, the investments, and the results of those investments. We're not obviously to the end state, and we never will be to the end state. It's a continuous journey that we're on, but we've made significant progress. And also other people are recognizing the progress that we've made. The last point relative to having the best year of funding from capital to operating, when you combine all that, the funding level from our partners down in Jeff City has never been stronger, and I believe they too are seeing the results of our strategic planning. on the MU campus, or excuse me, not the MU campus, all of our campuses and across the system, now going to the MU campus. Let's talk specifically about the progress at the halftime point of our planning process. Let's talk about the MU campus first. They established specific goals, like, for example, how many faculty awards. Right now, or the baseline when they set up the strategic plan, there was 183. Now they're up to 209. From a student retention standpoint, they baselined 2.5 years ago at 83%. They're now at 87%. They are just a little bit shy of Truman State as being the leader in retention in the state of Missouri. So it's been significant progress from a retention standpoint. From an ACT standpoint, they declared that we want to attract the best and the brightest students. Their baseline was at 25. They're now at 26, so they've seen improvement there. Also, on our campus here that we're sitting in right now, UMKC has also seen significant improvements against their goals that they've established. Retention rate now at 74%, which is a couple points higher than what happened just a year ago, which is a huge, huge year-over-year improvement. Also, from a high-impact learning experience, they start off with an honors program. Now they have an honors college that has significant investment that has been put in that. We now have 213 students enrolled in that and funding for 44 student scholarships. The importance of the honors program, or excuse me, the honors college here on UMKC can't be understated. What we are intentionally trying to do is attract the best and the brightest. There are certain students that have an academic profile that they want to run with similar students that have a similar academic profile, and their needs are unique, and you address those unique needs by having an honors program or honors college that is there to attract them, but also to make sure that they're successful and the experience is something that they can brag about and recruit their other friends that have similar academic profiles. From an online learning standpoint, we certainly heard from Barbara that the future is about embedding technology and automation in everything that we do from an instruction standpoint, from a research standpoint, how we interface with our students. There's more technology that could be applied even to the mental health conversation that we had earlier. I've always thought that information informs better decisions, and there are ways of collecting more information and identify the students and identify them before they enter into the class and recognize that they have unique needs that can be addressed by customizing the educational experience. And what UMKC has been after for quite some time is to improve the online offerings, both in quantity and quality, as well as improve the percentage of the students that are taking online courses. It's now up to 29.6%, up from 26% last year, so they've grown it by 3%. They're on their way to getting to 40% of the students having an online class. So again, progress is made. It's not a mistake. It wasn't just luck. It was intentional, made the investment, and made sure that they followed through in the investment, and we are getting the results. S&T, another great example of achieving the objectives that were set forth. 2.5 years ago, when the S&T leadership team came, they declared that we are going to increase the number of undergraduates that we've got. The baseline was at 5,800. This fall, they've seen the undergraduates grow to 6,800. 1,000 more students in 2.5 years is remarkable. Also, they declared that we're going to also involve more automation and technology in the educational experience that we offer to our students. At the baseline, they had 1,513 people enrolled in distance or online offerings. Currently, they have 2,583 students enrolled in online offerings. In 2.5 years, you can see that significant growth. Also, one of the things that S&T has declared is one of the constituencies that is very important to them is the employers and making sure that they're supplying the right quantity and quality of students, and that's going to be measured by the satisfaction of the employer after they have hired an S&T graduate. Their baseline was at 92%. The recent survey of those employers that have hired an S&T graduate, 99% employer satisfaction. So from 92 to 99% suggests to me that the investments, again, that they're making are paying off. Let's go to UMSL and talk about all the great progress that they've made at the UMSL campus. One of the things that was important to them was making sure that UMSL is the supplier of the employees for the major companies in the St. Louis metro area, and they are the major supplier of employees. And to do that, they had to increase the number of graduates that they have on the campus. They started off as a baseline of 2,974. They just recently graduated 3,146, which is an increase of 5% year over year. Underneath that increase in total graduates, which I'm really proud of on their behalf because they did all the work, is 18% in increase in degrees to minorities. So they saw a significant increase in the graduation of minorities. So they're on their path to the goal of 3,600 graduates by the year fiscal year 18, which represents a 20% increase in graduates, which is huge. Also, they wanted to make sure that from a fundraising standpoint or an alternative revenue standpoint, they were continuing to put value propositions out in front of alumni and donors that attracts more money. And in fact, they are attracting more money, and they've increased their annual donations from 24 to 25 million. So they're on the path of achieving that goal as well. From a system standpoint, the system too has a strategic plan and specific goals that are measurable that I'm happy to report on the progress there as well. One of the first themes that we've got is leveraging campus resources to support campus strengths. One of the things that we looked at was specifically the faculty population. Are we helping them in them inventorying their support and promote all their accomplishments? And we implemented a tool called MyVita, which replaced some antiquated systems that we now have a common process across the 4 campuses that allows faculty members to identify all the successes that they've had and all the experiences and publications, et cetera, that they have, which is a fantastic tool that also helps us in identifying the resources and the collaboration opportunities faculty to faculty, not just on the campus, but across campuses. So that was a huge implementation that is being rolled out as well. And theme 2, which is about the collaboration and sharing of best practices, the comprehensive retention initiative that we started a couple years ago, again, thanks to Steve Graham, wherever Steve is. There he is back there. He took the lead of getting what we call birds of a feather, those people that were really focused on each of the 4 campuses on retention, coming together, buying one software solution, having a best practice that results in significant improvements in retention. And we're seeing retention improvements across the board at the 4 campuses. I had the good fortune to tour one of the retention centers in arts and science on the UMSL campus, and it is amazing how we are proactively reaching out to students because we have information that we can now see on a proactive basis where a student needs some help, how we're reaching out to them, how we're making it students to set up the appointments, and how we're giving more information to them in terms of the degree mapping and some other specific information that will help the student be successful. So, and there's examples on each of the campuses. So here's a specific investment that was put in place that would be shared by all 4 campuses that we've gotten measurable results. Couldn't be more proud, and I want to thank Steve and the rest of the retention initiative team that has worked so diligently on getting those results. Finally, the last theme that we have for the University of Missouri system is about the advocating and the support of higher education. It's about the communication and the messaging that's taken place. If you think back 2.5 years ago when we put this goal in place, some said the objectives that we were trying to reach in 2018, which was the 5-year period of time, were not only aspirational, they were crazy. So if you think back in 2013 about a goal like we are going to find a way to get Jeff City to pay for $200 million in capital expenditures. In 2013, when we looked backwards, we couldn't remember a time when Jeff City had invested in capital for higher education or specifically for the University of Missouri system. But we wanted to put something that was aspirational, that was needed, which is $200 million of capital expenses. I'm happy to say, based on what's happened and all the hard work that we've done, we have $124 million of funding. So we're well towards that goal of $200 million from the capital. And for those of you that are around in 2013, if you were betting on that, the odds of success were probably pretty low based on how you looked backwards. But we stayed focused on it, and we've got $200 million. Another goal that we put back on this strategic plan for the system was to increase core appropriations by 20%. And back in 2013, we were coming off some flat years relative to funding, and we're well on the way to 20% would be a $476 million core funding. We're now at $447 million. And if the governor's proposal of 6% core appropriation goes through, that would put another $26 million, which would leave us only $4 million of core appropriations that we'd have to get between now and 2018 to achieve that goal. So you can clearly see that the aspirational goals that we have are being achieved. And again, I continue to reinforce these aren't by accident. These were intentionally put out there, and we've invested appropriately in that. The other things that we've done from a higher education, we've talked endlessly, maybe too much, about the Show Me Value Tour, but we're going to continue to do it because it works. It works. We're over almost 10,000 middle schoolers. Bo and I just did one the other day where we got together in the morning, split up. Bowen went to Ashland, I went up to Lang School. The conversation's fantastic. I got one at Carrollton next week. We're going to do another 14 this year. It is working. Everybody that around the state is reinforcing this is the message that needs to be delivered. It gets the University of Missouri system and the 4 campuses brand out in front of the people, and it excites people. And the rewarding thing to me and my fellow chancellors is after you have these conversations, when you get a text or when you get a tweet from one of these 7th or 8th graders that says, I wasn't going to college, now I'm going to college, that's enough. That makes the day worth it. So we're going to continue to do the messaging and communication. You're going to hear a lot more about what we're going to be doing on a systematic basis from getting the brand out there in months and years to come. So we are doing a better job in terms of discussing on a more real-time basis what we do to affect all 6 million Missourians, and we'll continue to do that. So when you think about where we are at the halfway point in terms of the strategic plan and what you can expect in the next 2.5 years, the sign says greatness, and in that we shouldn't settle for anything less than greatness, excellence. We've talked about good to great. We have, and we know what we need to do. We've been intentionally focused on making sure that we've got the right leaders, that we confront the brutal facts, which we did in our development session. Some of the facts aren't as easy to stomach as others, but we know where we are. And we know what we need to do to invest in the future. The culture of discipline that we've got in place, and making sure that we use the processes that are out there and track the processes will make sure that we continue for years to come to talk about how we've achieved this objective, but we need to continue to move the goal higher and higher. And lastly, the accelerating our achievement of these goals has much to do about automation, much to do about technology, and we're going to continue to look at places that we can invest in that will allow us to have the right kind of information at our fingertips so that we can make more informed decisions as to where we invest and how we work with our faculty and staff and our students in a more meaningful way on a go-forward basis. So I'm pleased to be able to report that progress is significant, and that if you're an investor, invest in the University of Missouri system, because you'll get a very demonstrable return on that investment, as we've just shown you in the last 2.5 years. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present kind of the halfway point in terms of our strategic planning, but most importantly, I want to thank all the leaders that I'm sitting here staring at, because these are the ones that did the work, and I just have the good fortune to represent all the good work that they've done and the successes that they've achieved. So appreciate it. Thank you.
The final item on the agenda are the good and welfare of the board. Is there any comments or suggestions for the good or welfare of the board?
I have a few.
Okay.
So I'm going to take this over as my report time. Okay, so.
Want to get up the podium?
Nah, that's okay. Maybe next time, maybe in December. Well, I want to thank you again for listening to the panel on mental health issues and progress that we're moving forward with on our campuses. But there are a couple things I wanted to highlight now that I didn't feel were most appropriate during a question and answer session. But I guess I wanted to highlight too that I think there's a perception that students are lower in resilience because we're millennials and we're really dependent on our parents. But really, I think that the world we live in is just very different than it was 30 years ago. Not just because of social media and distractions and people communicating with us all the time, but there's so much cyberbullying. There's so many personal attacks that happen face to face sometimes, but also indirectly because there's anonymity from behind a screen. And that empowers people to say nasty things sometimes. And our students are dealing with that. And I think we're seeing that. And I want that to be on your radar as I just would hate to give off the perception that, our students are underprepared or, that we're demanding. I mean, I think that it's really great that students feel empowered to ask for help when they need it. And we need to ensure that our campuses have the resources available to help these students who aren't in crisis, but are dealing with these burdens and need to talk to someone who won't judge them. And I know that at Truman, I used counseling services once. I waited a week, I went in, and they talked me out of dropping out. And I don't know what would have happened if I would have had to wait 3 weeks. And that's an unfortunate reality. But, I know that everyone who spoke with us today is, working within their constraints and wants to improve this. But we have to do better. We owe it to our students to do better. And I guess the one other comment that I had too was, we're hearing these issues on, it's difficult to recruit mental health practitioners to work in our universities, in our rural areas. And part of the problem is we don't have enough mental health practitioners out there. And this is something that was highlighted by the governor a number of years ago when I was entering the board, but I hope we don't lose sight of that. We have students who are interested in that area, and we are uniquely positioned as a university to be creating and developing these individuals who want to stay in Missouri and do this very important work. So we have a responsibility to do that. And then one other topic, and then I'm done, is you may or may not have seen this in the press, but Peyton Head is the student government president at Mizzou, and he is engaging in a very important conversation right now about, how do we make our campuses and our societies more inclusive and accepting of people who are different. And I encourage you to be a part of this conversation and be on the lookout for more, because we're moving forward, but change begins, on our campuses. And there are important conversations that are happening right now that I wanted to make you aware of. So that's it. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn the public session, and then we will reconvene in the executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Cindy, call the roll.
Curator Covington?
Yes.
Curator Cupps?
Yes.
Curator Graham? Curator Henriksen?
Yes.
Curator Phillips?
Yes.
Curator Snowden?
Yes?
Curator Steelman?
Yes.
Curator Stewart?
Aye.
Okay. All votes in favor.